Been a while. How you doing? What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I know it's been about 2 weeks. It's been about 2 weeks. I was out in Dubai for Token 2049. And we were out there in Dubai. It was a really good time. A lot of networking, a lot of events, a lot of parties. It was great. It was a good time, but dude, I'm so happy to be back. You guys know I'm a bit of a homebody. I enjoy being back at the studio. You guys know we just built this bad boy. Studio's looking a little bit better than it used to, I'd say. Let me know if you guys agree. I'm happy with it. Still a couple changes I want to make, but overall, pretty happy with it. And yeah, just kind of wanted to jump on today, go over everything that's happening. We have a pretty solid lineup for today. I can show you really quickly. Pretty solid lineup for the day. We're going to start off with an overview of the market. Then we're going to go into why the FOMC meeting today is extremely important, like one of the most important ones we've seen in a while. Then we're going to go over the report release that should happen in about 15 minutes. We're going to do some chart analysis after the report release to kind of just see how the market's feeling about it. Then there is a live FOMC meeting around 45 minutes from now, and then we'll do final thoughts and overview. So we have a good bit to get into today. So I'm happy to be back, and I hope you guys are, of course, doing good. It's been a couple weeks, as I mentioned before. I feel like we haven't spoken in a while. Happy to see all you in here. Very science. I see you shine. I see you. Hello, everyone. I saw Jason in here earlier. Oh, there he is. What's up, Jason? Making crazy jokes as per usual. What's up, everyone? Happy to have you. Happy to have you. But yeah, so anyway, so we're going to go ahead. Let's get started with it. One question that I have, because I can't seem to figure this out. Can you read that? Because to me, this looks backwards. Let me know. Anywho, let's get into it, baby. I'm happy to be back. Happy to be back. I'm gonna be here for I'm gonna be here until Sunday, and then Sunday I have to go out to Vegas. We have a really big thing. I'll tell you a little bit more about it whenever I get there. We have a really big thing happening out there throughout the first 4 days of the week or so. But I have some real cool content coming for you guys, so just stay tuned for that. But until then, a bunch of videos, a bunch of live streams, all that good stuff. Okay, everyone can read it. Cool. All right, sounds good. Let's get into it then, shall we? So first and foremost, as I mentioned before, kind of just getting into a bit of a overview of the market. Let's go ahead and get this time stamped up for you guys. Let's see what's going on. So the crypto market's been in a weird spot, right? So yesterday, I believe it was, we actually saw Bitcoin's price make a kind of a hellacious move, right? We saw it kind of dropping. We saw it going sideways. We saw it pulling back. Seemed like we were going to get this breakdown out of the ascending channel. Next thing you know, Bitcoin decides to maintain the support right here, pushes back within the ascending channel, and goes all the way to this 50% threshold of the ascending channel. Now, I talked about this yesterday. I'm not super happy with the fact that this happened, to be honest, if I'm going to be super clear with you. And the reason being is because, listen, that just means that we're now just back into the ascending channel. And historical data shows that there is an over 80 to 90% chance that Bitcoin will break to the downside of this eventually. It could look, of course, like it looked right here, which is just a breakout. It could look, like a fake out up here and then a pullback, or it could just be a casual pullback, right? There's an over 80% chance that we do break down out of this at some point. And I was kind of just hoping that we would see, Bitcoin just pull back out of it, right? I was hoping we'd pull back out of it, let this bad boy run as it's going to go, let it go a little bit further. Maybe we come back down to one of these key support levels, and then we can then we can start working our way back upwards. That is what I was hoping would happen. Actually, it was kind of what I thought was going to happen. I wasn't expecting to see this pump here for Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, what can you do? We haven't really been making any major moves. So, I mean, it's not like this was a huge catch off guard or anything, but it definitely was worth noting. This isn't very common. This doesn't happen normally. I'd usually do a credit moves like this to some sort of liquidity hunting, some sort of odd manipulative move. So definitely just be a little bit careful right now after a fake out of this nature. But all in all, not super concerned about it. I did actually go in just yesterday. And here we go. I did go in yesterday. I took a little bit of profits again yesterday as we did pump up towards that. What were we at? $96,700 level. So just slightly above where we are right now. I announced in the school, I said, look, the market did a really solid job recovering into the close today, which gave us another great opportunity to take some small profits across the crypto portfolio. I'm going to lock in gains here because I still believe we will see some sort of structural higher low form soon. Until then, I'll keep securing profits from everything we've been buying over the last few months. We love a chance to realize some gains. gains. Congrats, everyone. So as you can see here, took a little bit of profits again right there. And if I pull up my buy sell bubble sheet, you can see what that looked like. I took a little bit of profits. I don't know why that got so big. There we go. Little bit of profits right there. Now, this buy sell bubble sheet is just kind of an overview of what I'm doing. The green bubbles are when I'm buying, the red bubbles are when I'm selling. All of this is documented. And you can see we've been on fire, right? I mean, buying the lows, taking profits on the highs. We've been absolutely sweeping it. And so I took a little bit more profit here as well. Now, zooming out of just Bitcoin, we can see that the market's not in a terrible spot. It's been a rather flat 7 days, right? You see things like Ethereum up 1% in the last 7 days, 0.2% for BNB, 1% for Solana, Dogecoin at 0.13, Tron at 0.8%. And I actually do think that the market's in a pretty decent spot. The reason why I do think that the market's in a decent spot is because we actually did see a pretty sizable rally, right? We saw Bitcoin give us this gnarly push. We saw this big spring to the upside. And what had been happening for months and months and months would be that every time Bitcoin would pump, it would dump really hard after, like pump, harsh dump, pump, harsh dump. And it kept happening over and over and over again. And that's what we were concerned about. But I told you all when we broke out of this descending channel here, I said, listen, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think we're entering into a new phase. I think this is actually a different move than what we've been seeing. And this is just proof of it. The fact that we are seeing, your top 10, top 15 alts sustaining and holding up well over the last week is proof that the move we're seeing in the crypto market right now is different. We're not just seeing a huge sell-off like we had been the last couple months. We're seeing it go sideways, and it's balancing out and trying to maintain the sideways movement. And sure, it might pull back a little bit. Bitcoin, for example, might come to 90K, but that's not that big a deal. You're going to see highs, you're going to see lows. The big thing is that we're actually seeing a sustained breakout of this descending channel, which is what we needed in order to give ourselves a chance to run for all-time highs again. And that's the position we're putting ourselves in. And so overall, I actually think that although the market is at risk right now of seeing a bit of a pullback towards that $90,000 or $88,000 level for Bitcoin, bringing the rest of the market down with it, I actually do think it's in a rather healthy spot on all fronts. Now, that also does play into what we're seeing here over on coinglass.com. They just released a brand new chart called Hyperliquid, which I think is absolutely fantastic. This is one of my favorite charts that they've released. I'm going to use this in all my videos, most likely going forward. And what we can see here is, interestingly enough, the real-time well tracker shows that the longs and the shorts are decently balanced right now. So we have about 1.2 billion worth of long positions to 1.21 billion worth of short positions, 121 million in long margin, 107 million in short margin. And so it actually shows that there is a pretty decent balance here, right? No one's going super crazy in either direction. And generally, whenever you see a bit of balance, especially after a breakout like this, that's a good sign. Again, all roads point to the fact that this is a sustained breakout from the crypto market, a sustained breakout from Bitcoin. And although altcoins are still lagging behind just a little bit, it definitely continues to show me that I think we're in a different period here in the market. And I do expect that even if, again, Bitcoin's price does start to pull back to some of these levels, I actually think that we can still try to get some decent gainers here. And so overall, I am very happy with the crypto market right now, especially in advance of the FOMC. Now, speaking of the FOMC, we do get that release in about 7 minutes or so. And I do think it's important to touch on why it is so important to be watching the FOMC today, okay? So what you guys have to understand is that the crypto market is pretty much solely dependent on economic factors right now. And what I mean by that is, listen, we don't have a halving. We don't have, a big event. The market's gotten used to what Trump is saying. There's not a lot that's actually impacting the crypto market from a catalyst perspective, right? There are not many catalyst-based things. And although I don't think catalysts are necessary, the market does like to move based on them. And so the biggest thing, the most important thing right now that is consistently impacting the crypto market is the economy, especially in the United States. And of course, the economy is directly impacted by the FOMC, by Jerome Powell. If we, of course, see them cut rates, liquidity becomes higher, things get good. They raise rates, things get worse. If they, go into quantitative tightening, not good. Quantitative easing, good. Inflation, good. Crypto, good. Inflation, bad. Crypto, bad, right? All of these things, the crypto market is stalling out, and it's been boring, and it's not doing much recently because it's just waiting to see how the economy plays out. Most crypto investors and most retail investors in general are kind of taking a sit back and watch approach, right? We don't know what's going to happen with the US economy. Things might get better. Things might get worse. I don't want to be super risk on while we don't know. And so this uncertainty is causing many investors to keep their cash on the sidelines. And this is statistically seen across many of these different sideline trackers. And so to me, I think it's extremely important to be watching FOMC, especially right now, because it's going to start to give us a clear picture of if these investors are going to be willing to jump back in or not. Right? Are they going to start kind of just jumping back in, rebuying, going more risk on? Or is it the opposite, right? Do things start to look ugly? Are there risks of quantitative tightening happening? Are there delays in quantitative easing? Are they going to raise rates, right? If these things happen, likelihood is many investors become even more risk off. And next thing you know, we're kind of in a weird spot here in the crypto market. And so you have to understand that in a season in which there are no major catalysts in crypto, crypto is going to look outside of crypto, right? And right now it's looking at the economy and it's looking to see how things go. And it's directly impacting not only prices, but liquidity within the world of Web3, which is going to directly impact how things perform. And so, with that in mind, that is why I am so kind of adamant that we need to be watching this today. And that is why we are going to be jumping in and keeping an eye on these news that we do get over the next little bit here. So, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that we are going to get the FOMC report in about 5 minutes, which is going to give us just the statement from the FOMC, what they're seeing, what they're expecting, and what they're doing. Then we'll have about 30 minutes in between, in which there will then be a live stream from Jerome Powell. In which he is going to kind of talk, answer questions. He's going to say the same old shit he always says, but I do expect us to be able to hear the tone of his voice, see how he addresses certain questions, especially with the falling GDP and things like that. And we should be able to derive some clues and signs about how he might, start to impact the economy going forward. So we have a good bit to get into today, obviously, but I do think we've been in a pretty good spot here, but it is very important, very, very, very important to watch the FOMC. So let me actually go in and do that. And so, yeah, the next step here is really just waiting for this report release, which will happen in roughly, let's go ahead and call it 4 minutes or so. So let me just get that set up. I'm trying to add some timestamps for you all as well whenever we do these live streams. Let me know if you guys find that valuable. But yeah, so just kind of jumping in, let's just look at the market while we have a couple minutes here. Let's see. So we have EOS pumping today. That's interesting. EOS currently up to the 66 roll, rank number 2. More just a recovery, bit of a crappy year for EOS though, so not super exciting there. I'm not really big into Hex. Stacks is looking interesting. I've been seeing a lot of stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Stacks is the one that's doing some stuff with SWI, right? I'm a little bit out the loop with it. I can't remember, but I believe they're partnering up with SWI. And that's why they really started gaining a lot of momentum recently. And it is interesting to see because obviously just a year ago they were at $2.75. So being at 53 cents with some decent news could be interesting here. Let's see, Litecoin holding up decently, but seeing a bit of a polar backer here. Looking at a decent month. Last year for Litecoin's also a little bit poop. IP. Let's see. How's IP looking? I know this bad boy was running for a while there. Yeah, ran for a while. Pretty cordial pullback. I will say that IP is actually doing pretty dang decent. Let's see, we got 2 minutes. Okay. IP is actually holding up pretty decently, all things considered. I was able to meet their team over at ETH Denver, and they did seem pretty enthusiastic about what they're building here. I think they actually do have something going for them. And the fact that you're seeing kind of like this more casual pullback in their first big pullback is a good sign that they might end up running at some point. This is actually one that I'm going to be adding to my watch list and just keeping an eye on it because there is reason to believe that it could continue to try to gain some momentum and maybe even try to push that top 50 at some point. They have some really good tech. I did like what I saw there, so I may end up, I don't own any yet, but I definitely may end up scooping up some IP sometime pretty soon here, but obviously we'll keep an eye on it. Let's see, Fartcoin down today as it should be. IOTA, Radium, Solana looking decent. Nothing too crazy there. Pepe giving us some decent gainers here. 5% on the day, but still trying to recover on the week. A little bit up on the month, but obviously still down on the year. Yeah, pretty weird day. Pretty boring day. Honestly, nothing too crazy. How's Ondo holding up? Pushing back up here on the monthlies, decently on the yearlies. Ondo is one that I do own. I know that it is back at one of these macro support levels. And so to me, it does feel as if Ondo is still kind of in that little buying threshold. I haven't bought any in a while, but I definitely will consider buying some more, especially with the type of support-based progress that we're seeing right now. It feels as if it's trying to maintain some decent support here. So I'll keep an eye on it, maybe get a little purchasing in here. I know I did some buying on Ondo all in this, and a lot of these higher levels. So I know I'm negative on my Ondo position, but would love to lower that average cost now that we're back around here. So keep an eye on it. But alrighty, let's kind of just dive in then. Let's see what's we should have some stuff here from FOMC in a minute. So I'll keep you guys updated in a second. Feel free to ask some questions over the next minute or two. I'll answer them while I'm just kind of waiting. Yeah, hey, this is accurate. Look, I'm not going to read it. I don't want to get demonetized, but I think it's hilarious. Look. Alrighty, let's see. Alrighty. Drink your water or I'll ban you out the chat. No questions asked. Okay. All right, so it looks like it met expectations. Yeah, looks like we met expectations, kind of what you would start to expect here. So as expected, which is good. Ash Crypto always coming out with it as soon as possible. FOMC, the Fed has announced no rate cuts. Rates are unchanged. The market was expecting this. So this is what the market was expecting, which I think is a good thing. I am going to kind of zoom down here on the minutes just to kind of get an idea of what Bitcoin does in reaction to this. Generally, you would expect at expectations results to hold up well, but this crypto market is a bit fickle. So I would expect volatility to pick up here. I definitely wouldn't be opening any high leverage trades right now. I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth. Some pumps, some dumps. I think people are going to get liquidated on either side, especially if we do go look at liquidation map here. You can see on the daily, there are a lot of liquidations on both sides. I mean, 96,000 produces over a quarter million, or sorry, not a quarter million, 280 million or quarter billion. And then pushing up to about 98,000 gives us over 400 million. There's a ton of liquidations on both sides here, and I do expect many of those liquidations to happen. So I would definitely be a little bit careful and cautious at this exact moment. But I do think overall this is a net positive, that we didn't get anything kind of out the ordinary. The biggest thing that you need to be scared of here in the crypto market is something that's unexpected, something that just pops up out of nowhere that the market doesn't see coming, because that's when the most bullshit happens. That's when people freak out, they get worried, they panic, they buy, they sell, they short, they long. I mean, you can never really predict it. And one of the biggest banes of crypto's existence is instability. And that's just not what you want to see in a moment like this. After 4 or 5 months of downward pressure, sideways movement, you want to start to see some stability re-enter the market, because that's what can properly fuel some sort of growth. And so considering the fact that we did get some decent stability here, obviously from an at expectations Fed announcement, I think it's actually a pretty good thing. I'm pretty content with that. Let me see if I can find they should have a full they should have a full let me go get the full statement. Give me a minute. I can't remember what the website is. It's hold on one second. Let's go read through the full statement. Federal Reserve Board. I usually just check Twitter, so I can't remember where they posted it. Oh, it's in the releases, right? Give me one second. March, April, May 6th statement PDF. There we go. May 7th. Okay, let's read through this real quick. Okay, let's get into it. So, how long is this? You guys know I'm not the best at reading. All right, we're good. Although swings in net exports have affected the data, recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. The unemployment rate has stabilized at a low level in recent months, and labor market conditions remain solid. Inflation remains somewhat elevated. The committee seeks to achieve maximum employment and inflation at the rate of 2% over the long run. Same old shit. Uncertainty about the economic outlook has increased further. That's interesting. Uncertainty about the economic outlook has increased further. Good to know. The committee is attentive to the risk to both sides of its dual mandate and judges that the risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen. That's interesting. That's not great to hear. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. In support of its goals, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.14 to 4.5%. In considering the extent and timing of additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and balance risk. Same old stuff as always. The committee will continue reducing its holdings of Treasury securities and agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities, so a form of QT. The committee is strongly committed to supporting maximum employment, returning inflation, blah, 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 blah. In assessing the appropriate stance of monetary policy, the committee will continue to monitor implications of incoming information for the economic outlook, yada, yada, yada. Voting for the monetary policy, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Decisions regarding monetary policy implementation. The Federal Reserve has made the following decisions to implement monetary policy stance announced by FOMC. The Board of Governors voted unanimously to maintain the interest rate paid on reserve balances. As part of its policy decision, vote to direct the open market desk at the Federal Reserve until instructed otherwise to execute transactions in accordance with the following. Undertake open market operations necessary to maintain the federal funds rate. That's fine. Conduct standing overnight repurchase agreement with a minimum bid rate, blah, blah, blah. Same thing, 4.25. Roll over at auction the amount of principal payments from the Fed's holdings of securities, cap of $5 billion a month. That's the same. Reinvest the amount of principal payments for the Federal Reserve's holding of agency debt. This is interesting. Reinvest the amount of principal payments from the Federal Reserve's holdings of agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities received in each calendar month that exceeds a cap of $35 billion. To roughly match the maturity composition, this is just kind of stability and maintenance. Allow modest deviations from stated amounts. Okay. So everything, yeah. So for the most part, everything does look about the same. Some minor changes there, but nothing that are so important that I think they need to be discussed. I would just say the primary thing is that it does seem to me a bit as if they are a little bit more concerned about the impact of certain things that we are seeing within the economy and how they're going to impact employment and how they're going to impact inflation. So the primary driving factor of their uncertainty is obviously Donald Trump's tariffs. The tariff campaign has put some uncertainty on the market in general, which is what has been causing a lot of the instability that we've been seeing recently. And it seems to me as if they are factoring that in a good bit more now than they were over the previous months, because we are starting to see these tariffs actually having an impact on the economy now, right? These tariffs weren't just a one day or 1 week thing. These are something that is going to start shifting the way that the economy operates. And typically when you introduce a new variable into a system, the system changes, right? The output changes if the input changes. And so it seems to me as if they are being a little bit conservative and cautious about some of these different ways that you're going to see the economy impacted by the tariffs. But overall, they don't seem super concerned. We'll obviously be able to gather a lot more information from Jerome Powell's speech here in a minute. But again, I would start to expect him to just say the same old shit he always says. But yeah, overall, not terrible. The market's reacting to it. Let's see. A bit interestingly, this is what I was talking about. So do you remember I told you like I wouldn't be on any high leverage trades right now? This is why. This is just generally what will happen. People are buying and selling right now almost for no reason. I would say anyone who's dumping or anyone who's like buying a ton right now, they're literally just doing it for no reason whatsoever. At expectations will typically not trigger a huge move in either direction, but usually a lot of chop in both directions, which does generally lead to liquidations in both sides. And I would go ahead and assume that if we do this, yeah, exactly. You can kind of see we have seen some of those liquidations already starting to take place. If we look at liquidation history, you can kind of see that as well, I would assume. Yeah, I mean, you can start to see the liquidations are already picking up. This was just yesterday, so it's not going to be a direct reflection of today, but you're going to probably notice over the next 24 hours or so that liquidation history does start to pick up there. So overall, the market is moving a little bit, as you would expect, a little sideways chop, a little sideways volatility. So steer clear of high leverage trades right now. Nothing over, I would say, 30x or 25x should be done without tight stop losses, because you are going to see both sides kind of getting battered right here as a result of just exactly what you would expect from the FOMC. So I would say this is a nothing burger. I would say it's really not that big a deal. And if the market does decide to overreact in either direction for some reason, I will counter trade that, because I do think it would be purely just an overreaction. What I mean is that if the market just dumps off of this, I do intend to dollar cost average in. If the market pumps like crazy off of this, which again it shouldn't, I do expect to take some more profits off the table. As I mentioned before, I did take some profits yesterday, right around this level, around $97,000. And at the time of this live stream, that has actually played out pretty dang well. We took profits. $96,700 was the price of that, which would have been roughly here. Yep, roughly in this little pump here. So not bad timing. Got a little profits off the board with Bitcoin and many of my other major alts. So yeah, looking good overall. Not too concerned with everything. I think it's a pretty solid day. Generally speaking, the way that this uncertainty or the way that this news will impact crypto over the coming weeks, couple months or so, I do think likely this does imply that we are going to see a bit of a continuation and kind of this gradual movement. I'm not expecting huge pumps or huge dumps. I don't really think any of that's going to happen. I think the market's attempting to create structure right now. Look at this absolute bum in here right now, dude. Jesus Christ, get out. But generally speaking, again, like I'm not expecting any huge volatility from a more macro perspective. I think there will be short-term volatility and chop, but not macro volatility. Again, because the market is trying to determine the risk level that it wants to have here, right? Obviously, global liquidity is increasing, so that is a positive for the crypto market. But there are fears of things like inflation, positive or possible quantitative tightening, which I don't particularly envision, but that is a possibility, right? So a lot of investors are still sitting on the sidelines. They keep cash in their pockets. They're not going all in. They're not going all out. And I think that with what we're seeing right now, it's kind of just kicking the can down the road until a more active decision is made, at which point we are going to start to see it truly impact the crypto market. And so in the meantime, while this is happening and while we're kind of just waiting for this market to make a move, it does seem as if we're just seeing structure built, right? The primary thing that I'm noticing here is that, listen, we were in a huge downtrend. The market got in a bit of a better spot. We broke out of the downtrend. We set the higher high. Now we're looking to possibly set the higher low or enter into a consolidationary period here. This is structure that's being created. Now, what kind of structure? Well, you obviously never know, right? I mean, is it going to be this sort of structure? Are we talking A, B, C structure? Or are we talking about, you get your A, you get your fake B, you come back to the golden pocket, you find your support, your high or low, and the next thing you know, you push towards the upside? Or are we creating, this move, right? This sort of sideways thing to where we're then going to get some sort of more macro breakout in the upwards direction, maybe towards the end of the year, right? These are the things that we don't know right now, but it's being developed. And the reason why it's so important to track it is because the picture will get clearer and clearer the more that we continue to paint it. And so a day like today doesn't stop this from happening. It just, I would say, further incentivizes the market to not make huge moves in either direction, but more give us kind of this sideways movement, giving us opportunities to take small profits at the tops, DCA on the lows, and get some pretty solid entries here. If you're somebody who is doing a ton of buying back up here, say you entered into the market in October, or November, or December, I do think that it would make an absolute ton of sense to be using an opportunity like this, using lows and using these highs to lower that average cost down. Try to pull your average cost back into profit so that if the market does, of course, make a move at some point, you're in a better spot to be able to capitalize on some realized gains. My general strategy remains the same. While I'm not particularly expecting us to see any huge moves in either direction, I am still prepared for those moments. And so again, if we see any huge pumps, I am going to continue to take profits, big profits once we do clear 101. And if we do pull back, I am going to continue to do bigger and bigger and bigger purchases as we continue past $88,000 to the downside. So overall, pretty much expected. A pretty expected result here today. And the next thing that we can realistically do is in about 18 minutes or so, we're going to get the FOMC live meeting in which we're going to be able to hear Jerome say the same shit he says every single time. So that's where we are. And hopefully that overview of what we're seeing from the market has been helpful. And hope you're able to obviously use it for something positive there. Let's go ahead and just do that. And yeah, we're just going to hang out. We have, again, about 15 minutes or so. So leave me some questions. Leave me some comments. I'm going to answer some questions from you all. I'll take a look at a couple charts if you guys are interested. And then, in about 10, 15 minutes or so, we're going to go over the live meeting. Let me know how you guys feel about this. I've definitely been trying to structure these live streams a little bit more, having an actual agenda of what we're covering, give you guys timestamps, have a little bit of a better flow. Obviously, we redid the studio. So let me know if you guys have been enjoying the flow of this live stream. And of course, do leave me some comments now so I can answer some for you. Alrighty. How did you get my comment to come up like that? Because I'm not dumb, Connor. That's how. Now, you need to use StreamYard. I don't know if you use StreamYard or not, but if you click comments, you can just click them. You go to the comment section, you just click it, and it pops up like this. All right, let's see. It's okay. Let the market say like this. Gives me more time to buy and put all my salary in it. Well, that's your prerogative. Thanks for TI. Dumped 50% since you called it. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have noticed that as well. I do find it funny when you say thanks for that. It's like, I didn't call it. I just said, listen, I'm going to be adding a bit to my bag because I thought it was a decent time. And the market's pulled back a little bit, right? You're seeing alts underperforming in a moment like this. But from a macro perspective, my reasoning has not changed. In that video, I expressed the fact that I believe that TARs are starting to put in actual work that's increasing the intrinsic value of the company. And TARs isn't just kind of like a meme coin. It's not a micro cap. It's not a small thing. It's an actual company with actual technology, with actual potential. And so my genuine belief here is that all of the work that they're doing on the back end in order to build out their team and expand out their partnership with AWS. All of these things are going to increase its intrinsic value. And oftentimes in the world of crypto, if you can position yourself correctly with the right amount of marketing and the right amount of attention, that intrinsic value can be directly reflected by extrinsic price. And so although the price has fallen over the last couple of weeks, it doesn't change the fact that intrinsically their value is climbing. It almost more says that right now it's a better discount than it was just a couple of weeks ago. And so until you can have a shift of perspective, you're never really going to be able to succeed, especially with purchases like something like TARS, because you see the price go down and you immediately say, oh, thanks for telling me that. You caused me to lose money. When the reality is you have an opportunity to buy it at a better price, if that's what you're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. When the intrinsic value is ever increasing right now. So that's my general thoughts, but obviously to each their own. Haters will hate. I support you, dude. Support equals success. Shout out to you, champ. What do you think about the Loopring pump that happened this week? I haven't looked at it. Loopring's one I've never really gotten into, so I can't really speak on it too confidently. No, do not do that, Davis, by no means. Selling my house, putting it all in crypto. Hey. What you gonna do? Kenny in the chat. Oh, my least favorite redhead in the whole world is here. Putting my life investments into Fartcoin. I will actually hate you forever. Abdelaziz. 500x leverage with my salary. Do you think Solixy will launch, and what are your thoughts on it? Yeah, I hope so. I'm just kind of waiting. I know oftentimes these projects just wait for good opportunities, and I think that's what they're doing. They're just waiting for a good opportunity to be able to get hit the market. They don't want to waste all the hype that comes with a launch in a bad market like the one we're in right now. Thanks, Connor. I'm going to buy me some tea and biscuits instead, then survive the night. We live to fight another day, Davis. 500x for me selling a kidney. What is it with the U.S.? If it isn't Trump tanking the markets, it will be Powell. Well, we always have someone stirring some shit up. It's the United States for a reason. I'm leaving, putting some leverage on my girlfriend. She might give me a green god candle since crypto ain't doing it. Yeah, nothing burger for the most part. Sweet chart. Yep, we'll check out Sweet in a little bit here. I like that you copied my angle. Oh my God. Connor thinks I copy everything of his. Connor, go look at my videos from 2021. Yeah, brother. Eat one. Connor's, never mind. I can't say that. Never mind. Connor don't like having his location exposed. Do you think that Solixy will launch? Yeah, I answered that already. Are you going to stream the meeting? Yep, I'm going to go live. Well, I'm going to stay on live for the next, little while here. H-Bar. Yeah, we'll check out H-Bar in a little while. What do you think about Solana right now? I like it. Just as much as I've always liked it. I don't see any reason. I still like Solana way better than ETH, so happy with it. Yeah, we'll check Loopring as well. Where to buy Sweet? You can buy Swing on most centralized exchanges. I don't know much about the Crescendo upgrade. I haven't really been on the tech side of things recently. I need to get a little bit better into it. Just been busy. Get out, Connor. When do you start buying Bitcoin? I bought Bitcoin for the first time in 2018 or 17, and then I didn't really get into it until like 2020 though. Selling a kidney for Fartcoin, I would hate you for the rest of my life, Jared. Where the Bitcoin dominance will go, 75%, is it possible? I'm not sure about 75%, but definitely can continue pushing to the higher 60s. Tie up load since Tyler first talked about it. And that's kind of the thing. People get a little bit, annoyed by it, whatever. But the reality, the harsh reality here is that we've locked in over, 400, 500% profits. I know many of you who bought TARS for the first time around 7 cents and took profits at 40 cents. So, I mean, if you're late, you're late. Just a chill guy. Yeah, you are, Adrian. What about Bitcoin? I don't know what you mean, champ. Check Loopring. Yeah, we'll check it out. How to invest in stable coins. You just get them on Coinbase. Where do you buy TARS AI? You can buy it on stuff like Radium. What do you think about Crescendo upgrade? Already went over that. Hey, Tyler, you asked about lifetime membership 3 years ago. You said in 2 weeks. I know. Sorry. I know we're working on it. We had a bit of a better idea, so we're just kind of working on some things right now. Just stay tuned. Okay. Speaking of that, one thing, let me kind of do a little bit of shameless plug-in for you guys here real quick. Don't forget, guys, a lot of the stuff that you see me do here on the channel, the school sees it first, right? All of the buys, all of my sales, all of my trades, all that stuff is available over in the school. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Guys, in the school, we have a very, very simple mission. Okay. We have a very simple mission. What we do is we take crypto investors like yourself ourselves and we give you the tools that you need to create real strategies, not just BS, buy, sell, hodl strategies. I'm talking about real strategies that you can apply no matter what's happening in the market, because that's what creates a winning investor. Everyone, in my opinion, looks at crypto the wrong way. They think winning investors just make winning strategies. It's the opposite. A good strategy makes a winning investor. And I define a winning investor as someone who's confident and someone who's consistent. And so if you feel like you lack either one of those things, if you want to be able to see what I'm doing, if you want to see what our curly-headed friend Connor, red-headed friend Connor Kinney is doing, if you want to see what other coaches and people are doing, live shows, pro trade signals, alerts, giveaways, and all this good stuff, guys, all of this is available over at the school. And the best part is that if you don't see growth, if you don't find it valuable within your first couple hours, I'll literally just give you your money back, because I know that's how much value there is there, and I hope that you're able to see that. So the link for that is down below. And if you are doing some trading, though I'm not doing any high leverage trading right now, you can check out the link to BTCC, which is going to give you a 10% bonus on all first time deposits, which means that if you deposit, say, $10,000, they're going to give you $1,000 on the spot to start trading with. And whatever profit you make from that $1,000 is yours to keep, no strings attached. So that's down below. It's a very good platform. They do have isolated margin now, which is something a lot of you are looking for. So they have basically everything you're looking for, all available for you. So feel free to go check that out down below. Let me know what you think. And the last thing I'm going to shamelessly plug is my Instagram. A lot of you do DM me on Instagram, and I talk to a lot of you guys who are in the chat. Shout out Steinar. So feel free to go follow me on Instagram at Tyler Hill YT as well. But look, we have about 10 minutes until the FOMC meeting, so let's just keep the ball rolling. If you have any questions, leave them in the chat, and then in about 10 minutes or so, we're going to tune into the FOMC meeting. Here we go. Just so happened yours changed right after mine, sus. Yeah, whatever. I helped you. You and I helped. I kind of helped you decide when I was in Dubai last time. Thank you very much. Okay. So many comments. TLDR so far, Tyler. FOMC release was about as expected. That kind of leads to continuation of market uncertainty, but not in a terrible spot. I expect the market to continue to generally create structure and continue to go sideways, but we're not in a great spot. We're not in a bad spot, just a general sideways spot. Yeah, and if you are in the school, feel free to let everyone know about it, how you feel. If you were in the school and you canceled, tell people why. Super open to that as well. Shout out Steinar. Facebook will adopt SWI as a preferred payment option. That's interesting. I just subscribed yesterday, and my question was skipped. Sad unsubscribing now. What was your question? Oh, my God. Who is this? Okay. Are you getting paid for promoting TARS AI? I have a gigantic bag of TARS AI. If TARS AI does good, my bag does good. So I guess there is some incentive there, yes. You need to push your crypto school to the Mandarin-speaking audience. Let's talk. Shoot me an email. Open to hearing anything. When DJ Jerome will start in about 10 minutes or so. The shitcoin king is here. That's me, I suppose. Thank you, Tyler. Waiting for a good Bitcoin entry. Not bad. Can you look at quant chart? Yeah, we'll do some TA after the FOMC meeting in a little while. Do you liquid stake any of your crypto? I stake a lot of the bags I hold, only if it's easy. Like, I'm not going out my way to go to platform to platform to platform to stake anything. But if I have the opportunity to like stake Solana on Coinbase, I'll do it. Have you got any favorite meme coins? Yeah, I mean, I'm a Pepe guy. I'm a Brett guy. The basics. What's your thoughts on Richard Hart and how he defeated the SEC? I mean, I definitely do value the fact that he stood his own against the SEC, but I don't like his tactics. I'm pretty harshly critical of people who get money and then start acting like they're better than anyone, because the reality is, guys, I'm the same dude that I was whenever I had negative money, when I was in debt, whenever I had a little bit of money. I've had a decent amount now. I'm the same guy, because that is actually who you are on the inside. And if I was to try to portray or pretend to be somebody else, that would be being inauthentic. So I think there is some inauthenticity there, but obviously to each their own. I'm not one to judge, but I just think it's cringe. Like, buying Gucci tracksuits and all that bullshit is cringy, and I'll never support people who do it. Simple as. They make the space look bad. Looks mid-range bullet. Oh wait, I skip that one. How do you feel about Caspa? I like Caspa. Do I keep buying UFD? I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that one. Looks mid-range bullish. Agreed. What's up, homie? Almost doxed your name, but I don't know if that's cool. Haven't looked much at comp. I do have Caspa in my bags. Yep. I think 8 is just boring. It's been boring. It's always boring. It has its moments where it's not boring, but for the most part, it's boring. It's cool. I think it's a good, high quality, utility based crypto with a lot of ties to the government now through Charles. So it's all right. It's a good investment. Not a great one, not a bad one. Just a good one. I would not be rolling a 401k into XRP. No thanks. I'm good on that. I am Turbo Guy. Shout out to you. I think my homie Lewis from my Money and I YouTube channel talks about Turbo sometimes. But looking at exchange tokens, good looking. Yeah, I have a report coming out for exchange tokens pretty soon here. All right, 6 minutes into the meeting. Peanut the squirrel. I forgot about that. Is that still around? Pingu has been my highest gains in the last month. LOL means. That's a good one. That's a good one. I missed that one. I had the opportunity to get it and I didn't. The FOMC release was a report from the Federal Reserve, kind of just going over the state of the market and their plans to manipulate monetary and fiscal policy. Hey, Tyler, do you think we might see one more pump before we retrace down to support levels if Powell is dovish during his speech? That's just purely a guess. I genuinely couldn't tell you. I think there is reason to believe we could, especially considering we had a fake out yesterday. But the harsh reality is that no one really knows. It's possible though, for sure. Loving the school. Love to hear it. Love to hear it. What do you consider the best set and forget alts if there is such a thing? Probably annoyingly Ethereum, because Ethereum is going to be around for a while. Set it and forget it. I think ETH and Solana are like the top two. Like those are the two ones I'd be willing to just buy and leave alone because they've provenly gone through ups and downs and ups and downs. XRP is kind of teetering on that edge of my list as well. The reason I didn't include it simply though is just because this is its first time really showing us its potential now that there aren't huge catalysts on top of it, right? And so to me, I want to see how XRP balances out without having a major catalyst like the SEC or things like that on top of it, but almost there. What was your favorite spot you saw / visited in Dubai? Our hotel. So we stayed at the Address Skyview. So at first we stayed at a villa on the Palm with all the team from my company. And then the last 2 days we stayed at the Address Skyview. It's a really nice hotel. It's across from the Burj. It has a beautiful view. There's an infinity pool about 52, 53 stories up. Very cool. I am scared of heights, so I had to kind of get through that a little bit. But it was very cool. I liked it there. I think that's probably my favorite spot that I've seen. Okay. How did you research tokenomics? I purely just go through the white paper and then I go through the actual, like sometimes I'll use Dex tools, but oftentimes I'll use just like BSC scan or whatever and just kind of break it down. BSC scan's gotten a lot better with actually scanning through it, but generally you'll get enough of the information you need from their tokenomics on their actual white papers. I don't think so. I don't think that Bitcoin is going to continuously lead the market. All we need for alts to run is a market where people are risk on, where people are feeling like taking more risk. That is going to immediately trigger alts to see a good little runner. Dude, come on. How much is it a month? I want to play. I want to play. You're killing it, bro. I can buy the lows. I'm just having trouble with profit taking. I have no idea when I'm greedy. Here, cover my. Well, when you feel greedy and when your body does not want to take profits is when you should. Easiest strategy there. But the link is in the description down below. If you want to go check out the school, we have a bunch of profit taking strategies and stuff there. Where do you see interest rates when it is released? Some .gov website or yeah, it's the you can see it on federalreserve.gov. When is the advanced course being released? That's a big reason for joining for me. So we're actually going to be refining it a little bit to where instead of it being like beginner, intermediate, advanced, the beginner and intermediate content is just going to kind of be there for you. Then there's a really big course that's being developed. It's been a while, and I know it's obviously taken some time, in which is going to be mostly about trading, investing, strategy based, all that stuff. We do intend on having full release in June, so that would be ideal, or at least getting a lot of the content posted and then adding to it over time. What do you think about Bitcoin CME gap at 92K? I think it's very possible that it gets hit. I mean, CME gaps get filled very frequently. All right, that's it, man. I'm losing so much money. I don't care. I need to join your group. You need to teach me how to freaking just sell when we're in the top of the zone, even though I know I can't. Well, the best thing that you can do is just learn different strategies. We have coaches in there. We have different moderators. We have community leaders who can all kind of give you their insight. But in addition to that, just watch when I'm taking profits. Watch when Connor's taking profits. Watch when Aaron's taking profits. And don't copy us, but more get an understanding of why we're doing it, right? One of the reasons I took profit yesterday is because all the comments on YouTube were so negative. Everybody was being negative and pessimistic, and that is a good trigger for me to just take profit. You know, it's easy stuff like that. It's stuff that you wouldn't really think about. Xana, do you have any thoughts on this theory? I think the banana zone theory is nonsense. I think it's something that Moon Boys just pushed too hard. But Raul Paul is much smarter than I am. So, do you take profit on spot bags or do you hold medium long term for your entries? All of it. I take profit on all of it. Do you trade relative valuation charts? Not really. I think it's just a little bit more of a harder factor because I need to, how do I explain it? Like, you got to be looking at the alt, then you got to be looking at Bitcoin, then you got to look at them compared to each other. It's just, it's a lot. You took profit yesterday at the lows. No, I took profit yesterday at the highs. So you can see I took profit yesterday. I didn't mean to do that. And I'm about to jump over to the stream here. But I took profits yesterday at 96.7K up here. Okay, all right, let me switch it over real quick, and then let's get the good old stream here on. Present, share screen, Chrome tab, Fed live video, bam. Okay. This starts in 1 minute. In the meantime, I'm going to update our timestamps. 47:22. Do you have any traders in the membership giving TA signals? Yep, we have a full team of traders who gives their buy-sell signals every day. And then we have community traders as well who give their buy-sell signals every day. Pretty good win rate, too. We track it every week. Okay. And while this is getting run up, I've been drinking a lot of water today, folks, so I'm going to go run to the bathroom. But we'll just kind of get the stream ready here. Let's do this. There we are.
I remain squarely focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people.
I'll just wait.
Despite heightened uncertainty, the economy is still in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer run objective. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. The risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation appear to have risen, and we believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments. I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Pardon me. Following growth of 2.5% last year, GDP was reported to have edged down
the volume
in
general
quarter,
is low,
reflecting swings in net exports that were likely driven by businesses bringing in imports ahead of potential tariffs. This unusual swing complicated GDP measurement last quarter. Private domestic final purchases, or PDFP, which excludes net exports, inventory investment, and government spending, grew at a solid 3% rate in the first quarter, the same as last year's pace. Within PDFP, growth of consumer spending moderated, while investment in equipment and intangibles rebounded from weakness in the fourth quarter. Surveys of households and businesses, however, report a sharp decline in sentiment and elevated uncertainty about the economic outlook, largely reflecting trade policy concerns. It remains to be seen how these developments might affect future spending and investment. In the labor market, conditions have remained solid. Payroll job gains averaged 155,000 per month over the past 3 months. The unemployment rate at 4.2% remains low and has stayed in a narrow range for the past year. Wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, a wide set of indicators suggest that conditions in the labor market are broadly in balance and consistent with maximum employment. The labor market is not a source of significant inflationary pressures. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer run goal. Total PCE prices rose 2.3% over the 12 months ending in March. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.6%. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Survey respondents, including consumers, businesses, and professional forecasters, point to tariffs as the driving factor. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5% and to continue reducing the size of the balance sheet. The new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. The tariff increases announced so far have been significantly larger than anticipated. All of these policies are still evolving, however, and their effects on the economy remain highly uncertain. As economic conditions evolve, we'll continue to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, the outlook, and the balance of risks. If the large increases in tariffs that have been announced are sustained, they're likely to generate a rise in inflation, a slowdown in economic growth, and an increase in unemployment. The effects on inflation could be short-lived, reflecting a one-time shift in the price level. It is also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the tariff effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully into prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to prevent a one-time increase in the price level from becoming an ongoing inflation problem. As we act to meet that obligation, we'll balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans. We may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. If that were to occur, we would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the potentially different time horizons over which those respective gaps would be anticipated to close. For the time being, we're well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. At this meeting, the committee continued its discussions as part of our 5-year review of our monetary policy framework. We focused on inflation dynamics and the implications for our monetary policy strategy. Our review includes outreach and public events involving a wide range of parties, including Fed Listens events around the country and a research conference next week. Throughout this process, we're open to new ideas and critical feedback, and we will take on board lessons of the last 5 years in determining our findings.
We're okay
intend
with
to wrap
criticism.
up the review by late summer. The Fed has been assigned 2 goals for monetary policy: maximum employment and stable prices. We remain committed to supporting maximum employment, bringing inflation sustainably to our 2% goal, and keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our success in delivering on these goals matters to all Americans. We understand that our actions affect communities, families, and businesses across the country. Everything we do is in service to our public mission. We at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Steve.
Steve Leisman, CNBC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking my question. A lot has happened since the last meeting. There's been tariffs put on, tariffs taken off, and meanwhile, there's a bill advancing in Congress. And I just wonder if I could press you on the last part of your statement. Are you any closer now to deciding which side of the mandate is going to need urgent care first?
Well, so as we noted in our statement, post-meeting statement, we've judged that the risks to higher employment and higher inflation have both risen. And this, by the way, of course, is compared to March. So that's what we can say. I don't think we can say, which way this will shake out. I think there's a great deal of uncertainty about, for example, where tariff policies are going to settle out. And also, when they do settle out, what will be the implications for the economy, for growth, and for employment? I think it's too early to know that. So, ultimately, we think our policy rate is in a good place to stay as we await further clarity on tariffs and ultimately their implications for the economy.
Hearing you describe what you're looking for in terms of being able to make a decision, it sounded like that's a long-term process before you sound like you're going to be comfortable, or the committee would be comfortable to act on what the data is telling you.
I don't think we know. I think if you look at where we are today, we have an economy that, if you look through the sort of distortions in Q1 GDP. You've still got an economy that looks like it's growing at a solid pace. The labor market appears to be solid. Inflation is running just a bit above 2%. So it's an economy that's been resilient and is in good shape. And our policy is sort of modestly or moderately restrictive. It's 100 basis points less restrictive than it was last fall. And so we think that leaves us in a good place to wait and see.
It's kind of valid, though, I ain't gonna lie. Like, what he just said is kind of valid.
We're going to be watching the data. The data may move quickly or slowly, but we do think we're in a good position where we are to let things evolve and become clearer in terms of what should be the monetary policy.
I think that
response.
is reasonable. I'm not gonna lie.
Nick.
Nick Timmerose of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, there's naturally a lot of PTSD around 2021 and supply shocks, but there are some who argue that the current situation has notable differences. Energy costs are down, housing imbalances look nothing like they did 4 years ago, labor demand appears to be gradually cooling with wage growth running below 4%. What do you see right now that could nourish higher inflation beyond a rise in goods prices this year?
Nothing.
I think the underlying inflation picture is good. It's what you see, which is inflation now running a bit above 2%. And we've had basically decent readings in housing services and non-housing services, which is a big part of it. So that part, I think, is moving along well. But there's just so much that we don't know. I think, and we're in a good position to wait and see, is the thing. We don't have to be in a hurry. The economy has been resilient and is doing fairly well. Our policy is well positioned.
You see how
The
he
costs of
didn't want
waiting
to say
to see further are fairly low. we
He's
think.
indirectly just saying whatever Trump
So
does
that's
is
what
what's
we're
going to
doing.
cause
And,
everything to be either good
we'll
or bad.
see, the administration is entering into negotiations with many countries over tariffs. We'll know more with each.
The dude basically asked, outside of tariffs causing the cost of goods to go up,
land.
what will cause
And
inflation?
we'll know what the effects
And he's
will
like,
be
"Oh,
when
I
we
don't
start
know."
to see those things.
Say
So
nothing,
we think
bro.
we'll be learning. I can't
Just
tell
say
you
it.
how
Like,
long
if you're going to
will
say it,
take.
just say it.
But for
Like,
now,
what are
it
you
does
talking
seem
about?
like it's a fairly clear decision for us to wait and see and watch.
So when you say that you don't need to be in a hurry, does that mean that could the outlook change in such a way that a change in your stance could be warranted as soon as your next meeting?
They need to put me in
as
this
I
room.
said,
What y'all think? Put me in this room. I'll start cooking. No
We
problem.
are comfortable with our policy stance. We think we're in the right place
Just
to wait and see how things evolve. We don't feel like we need to be in a hurry. We feel like it's appropriate to be patient. And when things develop, of course, we have a record of we can move quickly when that's appropriate. But we think right now the appropriate thing to do is to wait and see how things evolve. There's so much uncertainty. If you talk to businesses or market participants or forecasters, everyone is just waiting to see how developments play out.
Whoa,
And
Golden
then
Years.
we'll be
I
able
didn't say
to
that.
make a better
Player.
assessment of what the appropriate path for monetary policy is. So we're not in that place, and as that develops, and I can't really give you a time frame on that.
John L.
Janelle Marte with Bloomberg. So many economists have been pricing in higher odds of a recession, and several are noting that it is more difficult for the Fed to cut rates preemptively given the higher risks for higher inflation. So given the outlook, do you still see a path for a soft landing, and what does that look like?
Well, let me say, so let's
If
look
bro
back
says I don't know,
and
I'm
see
gonna be
where we
mad as
are.
hell,
So
I'm not gonna lie.
go through 2024 up to the day. We've had unemployment in the low 4s for more than a year. We've had inflation coming down in the mid to low 2s. We've had an economy growing at 2.5%. So that is the economy as we see it now. What looks likely, given the scope and scale of the tariffs, is that we will see certainly the risks to higher inflation, higher unemployment have increased. And if that's what we do see, if the tariffs are ultimately put in place at those levels, which we don't know, then we won't see further progress toward our goals. We might see a delay in that. I think in our thinking, we never do anything but keep achieving those goals. But we would, at least for the next, let's say, year, we would not be making progress toward those goals. Again, if that's the way the tariffs shake out. The thing is, we don't know that. There's so much uncertainty about the scale, scope, timing, and persistence of the tariffs. So that's that. In terms of preemption, I think you can look back at the 2019 cuts as preemptive. I wouldn't say that what we did last fall was at all preemptive. If anything, it was a little late. But
You're always late.
2019, we did cut 3 times, but the situation was you had a weakening economy and you had inflation at 1.6%. So that's a situation where you can move preemptively. Now we have inflation running above target. It has been above target for 4 years. It's not so far above target now, and we have an expectation, conditional on what happens, that we'll see upward pressure on inflation. If you look at where forecasters are, they're all forecasting an increase in inflation. So it makes it, and then we've also got forecasts of weakening in the economy, and some have recession forecasts. We don't publish a forecast about that. We don't publish a forecast that assesses how likely a recession is. But in any case, it's not a situation where we can be preemptive because we actually don't know what the right response to the data will be until we see more data.
Colby.
Colby Smith with the New York Times. How much weakness does the committee need to see, though, in the
You're gonna
labor
be
market and
disappointed
the
in me,
economy more
Sarah.
broadly to lower interest rates again? Is it about
gonna
a certain increase in the unemployment rate over a period of time, or perhaps a certain number of negative monthly job reports? I mean, how are you making that assessment?
So first of all, we don't see that yet, right? We have 4.2% unemployment, good participation, wages behaving very well. Participation, I mentioned, at a good level. So, with the labor market, we would look at the totality of the data. We'd look at the level of the unemployment rate. We'd look at the speed with which it's changing. We would look at the whole huge array of labor market data to get a sense of whether conditions are really deteriorating or not. And at the same time, we'd be looking at the other side of the mandate. We could be in a position of having to balance those two things, which is, of course, a difficult balancing judgment that we'd have to make.
On that point about balancing, I mean, you've mentioned that the committee would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the time it would take to kind of get back to that point. But what does that mean in practice? I mean, how much of that assessment will be rooted in a forecast versus data dependence?
It would be a combination of the two. I mean, let's just say this would be a complicated and challenging judgment that we would have to make. Yeah, we're not in this situation, but the situation is if the two goals are in tension, so let's say that unemployment is moving up in an uncomfortable way, and so is inflation. Not the situation we're in, hypothetically, but we would look at how far they are from the goals, how far they're expected to be from the goals, what's the expected time to get back to their goals. We'd look at all those things and make a difficult judgment, and that's in our framework. It's always been in our thinking. We haven't faced that question in a very long time. So again, difficult judgment to make, and not one that we face today, and we may never face it, but we have to be keeping it in our thinking now.
Edward.
Thank you. Edward Lawrence with Fox Business. So we had the CPI report that came out that showed month over month the first decrease in inflation in about 3 years. The jobs report, you said, solid, that we saw. At the same time, we have those new tariffs that we're living under. So given this, should the Federal Reserve be cutting rates at all this year?
Oh, shit.
It's going to depend. I think you have to just take a step back and realize this is why we are where we are, is, we're going to need to see how this evolves. There are cases in which it would be appropriate for us to cut rates this year. There are cases in which it wouldn't. And we just don't know. Until we know more about how this is going to settle out and what the economic implications are for employment, for inflation, I couldn't confidently say that I know what the appropriate path will be.
So following on that, so then how does President Trump calling on you personally, as well as the Federal Reserve, to make rate cuts affect your decision today and affect your job difficulty?
Doesn't affect our doing our job at all. So we're always going to do the same thing, which is we're going to use our tools to foster maximum employment and price stability for the benefit of the American people. We're always going to consider only the economic data, the outlook, the balance of risks, and that's it. That's all we're going to consider. So it really doesn't affect either our job or the way we do it.
Howard.
Hi, Howard Schneider with Reuters, and thanks for the time. I'm wondering, I mean, given the complexity about the first quarter GDP and what lies ahead, I'm just wondering what your intuition tells you about the underlying direction of the
He's
economy.
gonna say he doesn't
right now.
know, we
Many
need to
of your
wait and see,
colleagues
yada,
have said
yada.
they feel growth is slowing. If so, do you have any sense of by how much, to what degree the slowdown may be? What does your gut tell you about how things are evolving out there?
My gut tells me that uncertainty about the path of the economy is extremely elevated, and that the downside risks have increased. The risk is, as we pointed out in our statement, the risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen, but they haven't materialized yet. They're really not in the data yet. So that tells me more than by intuition, because I think it's obvious actually that the right thing for us to do is we're in a good place. Our policy's in a very good place, and the right thing to do is await further clarity. And there's usually things clarify and the appropriate direction becomes clear. That's what usually happens. Right now, it's very hard to say what that would be. In the meantime, the economy is doing fine. Our policy isn't, it's not highly restrictive. It's somewhat restrictive. It's 100 basis points less restrictive than it was in, last summer. So we think it's in a good place, and we think the appropriate thing is for us to wait and see and get more clarity about the direction of the economy.
Well, let me press you on this idea of the economy being fine right now, because reading the Beige Book very closely the last time around, there was a lot of negative stuff, negative sentiment that was in there. And I know that everybody's looking at soft data right now. You mentioned it yourself that the sentiment's sour. But the Beige Book was talking about, the beginnings of layoffs in some industries, prices rising in some places, and an awful lot of investment decisions being pushed to the sideline. Doesn't that point to a slowdown?
It may well. It just hasn't shown up yet. And we all look at all these sentiment and read many individual comments just to get a better feel. And businesses and households very broadly are concerned and postponing economic decisions of various kinds. And yes, if that continues and nothing happens to sort of alleviate those concerns, then you would expect that to begin to show up in economic data. It wouldn't maybe show up overnight, but it would show up over weeks and months. And that may be what happens, but it hadn't happened yet. And also, there are things that can happen that will change that narrative. I mean, they haven't happened, but it's possible to imagine things that. But in the meantime, yes, we're watching it extremely carefully, like everyone is, but don't see really much evidence of it in the actual economic data yet. And by the way, consumers keep spending, credit card spending. It's it's still a healthy economy, albeit one that is shrouded in some very downbeat sentiment on the part of people and businesses.
Michael McKee.
I'm going to exit off this somewhat decently soon if they just keep asking
Michael
the same
McKee from
questions.
Bloomberg Radio and Television. The Fed's been criticized recently by a former governor for what he calls mission creep. You take on more problems, use more tools, and then end up building tools to deal with the fallout of those tools, which then makes it a given that you will act more aggressively in the future. Is that a fair critique, and is that something you would be looking at in your framework review?
Sorry, say the critique again.
That the Fed has been involved in mission creep, gets involved in using too many new tools to deal with problems and to go too far. Is that something that the critique was based around the fact that you did QE and QE and QE and went beyond the narrow
getting
confines
pissed.
of your mandate?
So, well, I mean, there are a couple. That's not really beyond the confines of our mandate. Look, I would say this: we did things. Essentially, we're on an emergency footing for a couple of years in the pandemic, and it's very fair and very welcome for people to look back over what we did and say, "Hey, you could have done this better and different." And one thing we hear a lot is we could have explained QE a little better. We did think we were explaining it in real time. I completely accept the thought that we could have explained it better. There's a lot of thinking that we went on too long with QE. I can tell you that the reason we did was we were concerned that we didn't want a sharp tightening in financial conditions at a time when we thought the economy was still vulnerable. And so we did hold on for a long time to QE, and we, of course, tapered everything. And then we immediately went into QT, and, we're down a couple of trillion. But I get we certainly, with the benefit of hindsight, could have tapered earlier or faster. That's absolutely right. But this is all very welcome. We knew doing this in real time that we weren't going to get it perfect, and those kind of after action kind of looks are essential, and we're doing the same thing in our review. So on some issues.
The other part of that critique is that you've taken on topics that are outside of the mandate, such as climate change and trying to ensure that certain groups are benefited by your economic policies in terms of employment, et cetera.
So, okay, on climate, you've heard me say over and over again that we will not be climate policymakers, and that our role on climate is a very, very narrow one. And I think that's what we've done. We've done really very little on climate. You can say that little bit that we've done was too much, but I wouldn't want to give any impression that we've taken climate and it's something that we're spending a lot of time and energy on. We're not. We have very, very narrow things. We did one guidance for the banks, and then we did a one-time stress analysis, climate stress analysis, and that's it. And we dropped out of the network of greening the financial system. So we didn't do much on.
But how about you don't do anything and do your job?
I do think, and I've said this publicly several times, I think it's a real danger for us to try to take on a mandate like that, which is very narrow application to our work. And the risk is if you go for things that are really not in your mandate, then why are you independent? And I think that's a very fair question. I do think we've done a whole lot less on climate than some people seem to think we did. Anyway, that's what I think.
Well, I only committed a little bit of a crime, officer. I didn't do a big crime, so it's not illegal.
Bringing unemployment rates down.
Fuck is bro talking?
We didn't do that. What we said was that we never targeted any unemployment rate for individual racial or demographic groups. What we said was that maximum employment was a broad and inclusive goal. And I think what we meant by that was we're going to consider the totality of the country as we look at our maximum employment goal. Of course, we were never going to target any individual group with that, but I think some people, wanted to hear it that way. But that's not at all what we meant. So that's just not a correct reading of our. But I can see how maybe people found that confusing, and we have to take that into consideration.
Jolene.
Hi, Chair Powell. Thanks for taking our questions today. I'm Jolene Kent with CBS News. You've said wait and see, and the economy is doing fine today, but the impact of tariffs are already showing up at the ports. Businesses big and small are telling us that they feel it, and most importantly, consumers say they feel it, that the challenges are here, and there's no waiting and seeing. For Main Street, what is the breaking point? What would have to happen to prompt
Something
a rate
very
cut
bad.
Specifically?
Well,
He said that the data doesn't show that.
So we
Fucking
really
nonsense.
don't see in the data yet big economic effects. We see sentiment, there are concerns that higher prices may be coming or things like that. So people they're worried now about inflation. They're worried about the a shock from the tariffs, but they really haven't. That shock hasn't hit yet. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the not just the sentiment data, but also the real economic data as we assess what it is we should do. And remember, there will be two effects. One of them would be weakening economic activity, which translates into higher unemployment, and the other would be potentially higher inflation. Again, to say it again, the timing, the scope, the scale, and the persistence of those effects are very, very uncertain. So it's not at all clear what the appropriate response for monetary policy is at this time.
She's about to cook his ass.
And by the way, our policy is in a good place, so we think we can wait and move when it is clear what the right thing to do is.
Cook him.
Really not at all
Cook
clear
him.
what it is we should
Cook
do.
him. Cook him.
So People are feeling stress and concern, but unemployment hasn't gone up. Job creation is fine. Wages are in good shape. People are not layoffs, or people are not getting laid off at high levels. Initial claims for unemployment are not increasing, in any kind of impressive way. So the economy itself is still, in solid shape.
Just a quick follow-up.
Okay.
President Trump now says he does not plan to remove you as chair. When you heard that, what did you think?
He
I
couldn't.
don't have anything more for you on that. I've pretty much covered that issue. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Chris Rugaber, Associated Press. Well, I just wanted to follow up. Earlier, it sounded like you said it was unclear how the Fed, what kind of interest rate decisions you will make later this year. So does that, in March, there was guidance that 2 cuts might happen, 2 cuts were penciled in for this year. Is that now, that guidance from the last press conference, has that been overtaken by events?
Oh, shit.
At this point?
We don't do a summary of economic projections at every meeting, as you know. We do it every other meeting, and so this was the meeting when we didn't do it. We don't also kind of poll people, so I really wouldn't want to try to make a specific projection for where we are relative to that. We will, in 6 weeks, we have the June meeting, and you'll have another SEP. I'm not going to hazard a guess here today as to what it would be. Again, what I would say is that we think our policy rate is in a good place. We think it leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential developments. That's where we are.
Somebody bring me my rocking
That,
chair.
depending on the way things play out, that could include rate cuts. It could include us holding where we are. We just are going to need to see, how things play out before we make those decisions.
With the data.
Great, and just to follow up on that, I mean, when you address the issue of how the Fed would handle both rising unemployment and rising inflation, how are you thinking about the fact that addressing one could exacerbate the other? So a rate cut to reduce unemployment could worsen inflation and vice versa. How do you handle those
Well,
challenges?
you just captured this is the issue with the 2 goals being in tension. It's a very challenging question. Now, there can be a case in which one goal is very far, one variable is very, very far from its goal, much farther than the other, and if so, you concentrate on that one. And frankly, that was the case. Well, it wasn't a case where they were really in tension, but if you go back to 2022, it was very clear that we needed to focus on inflation. The labor market was also super tight, so it wasn't really a trade-off. I think what our framework document says. It says we'll look at how far each variable is from its goal, and also we'll factor in the time it would take to get there. So, that's going to be potentially a very difficult judgment, but the data could break in a way that it's not. I just don't think we know that. The data could easily favor one or the other, and right now there's no need to make a choice, and no real basis for doing so.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. I wanted to ask, Congress is currently debating spending cuts alongside extending the tax cuts. And I know you've talked many times about how the path of the debt is unsustainable, but given that we're also talking right now about the economy slowing, potentially even recession, I was just wondering, is there a danger that spending cuts now could slow growth a lot more?
We don't give Congress fiscal advice. They're going to do. We take what they do as a given, and we put it in our models and in our assessment of the economy. So I wouldn't.
So you'll give your opinion on
speculate
fucking
on
climate
that.
change, but you
I
won't
think
on
we do
fiscal
know that the
policy.
debt is on an unsustainable level, on an unsustainable path, not at an unsustainable level, but an unsustainable path, and it's on Congress to figure out how to get us back on a sustainable path, and it's not up to us to give them advice.
Well, do you think that they should take macroeconomic conditions into account as they look at this?
I think they don't need my advice and our advice on how to do fiscal policy any more than we need their advice on monetary policy.
Andrew.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
gonna have a
Andrew
mental
Ackerman with the
breakdown.
Washington Post. In your Jackson Hole comments last year, you said you would not welcome further cooling in labor market conditions. The unemployment rate then was 4.2%, which is what it is now. Many forecasters now predict a higher jobless rate. How has your tolerance for weakening labor market conditions changed compared to a year ago?
So it was quite a different situation. What was happening last year is that over the space of 6, 8, 7 months, the unemployment rate went up by almost a full percentage point. And it was click, 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 click each month. And you know,
No,
everywhere
Don, they
people
never
were
did.
talking about downside risk to the labor market. At the same time, payroll job numbers were getting softer and softer. So there was a really obvious concern about downside risk to the labor market. And so at Jackson Hole and then in September, you know, we wanted to address that forthrightly. We wanted to show that we were there for I mean, we'd been there for inflation for a couple of years, and we wanted to show also that we're there for the labor market. And it was important that we send that signal. Fortunately, since then, the labor market has really, and the unemployment rate have really been moving sideways at a level that is, you know, well in the range of mainstream estimates of maximum employment. So that concern has gotten a lot less. So, you know, you're at 4.2% unemployment. I think we were in a very different situation. Now we have a situation where, you know, the risks to higher inflation and higher unemployment have both gone up, as we noted in our statement, and we've got to monitor both of those. We actually have a potential situation where there may be a trade-off or tension between the two, potentially. We don't have it yet, and we may not have it, but that's what we have, and that's why I think it's a very different situation.
I mean, I guess I want to follow up by asking how much of a rise in the jobless rate you could tolerate.
Yeah, I can't give you I'm not going to try to give you a specific number. I'll just say we have to now be looking at both variables and which of them is you know, demanding. If one of them is demanding our focus more than the other, that would tell us what to do with policy. If they're more or less, you know, equally distant and equally or not distant, then we don't have to make that assessment. You know, the assessment is you wait. So I'm not going to try to be really specific about what we need to see in terms of a number. But if we did see, you know, significant deterioration in the labor market, of course that's one of our two variables, and we would look to be able to support that. You'd hope that it wasn't also coming at a time when inflation was getting very bad. And again, we're speculating here. We don't know this. We don't know any of these things. It's very hypothetical. We're just going to have to wait and see how it plays out.
Thanks.
Claire.
Claire Jones, Financial Times. In terms of getting some clarity, we've got some talks at the weekend in Geneva between the US and China. A lot of economists are attaching an awful lot of importance to what we hear from those talks. How much importance are you attaching to them in terms of judging what will happen to the US economy going forward? And just in a similar vein, some economists are saying it's days, not weeks, that we have until we start to put the US economy at risk of seeing the sort of pandemic-era shortages and higher prices if we don't kind of soothe relations between the US and China. So it'd be good to have your view on that too.
So, you know, these are not talks that we're in any way involved in, so I really can't comment directly on them. So, but what I will say is this, you know, we had, coming out of the March meeting,
I'm going to close this pretty soon here.
The public generally had an assessment of where tariffs were going, and then April 2 happened, and it was really substantially larger than anticipated in the forecasts that I had seen and in our forecasts. So, and now we have we're in a new phase where it seems to be we're entering a new phase where the administration is beginning talks with a number of our important trading partners, and that has the potential to change the picture materially or not. And so I think it's going to be very important how that shakes out. But we simply have to wait and see how it works out. It certainly could change the picture, and we're mindful of not trying to make conclusive judgments about what will happen at a time when the facts are changing.
And just on the fall in shipping volumes from China over these tensions, I mean, do you share that concern that we could start seeing goods shortages and higher
If he says
prices in
he-
the coming weeks if
I'm gonna
this
exit if
isn't
he avoids
resolved
this
very
question.
quickly.
You know, I don't want to get we shouldn't be involved even verbally in the questions about the timing of these.
Okay. I've had enough. I can't take this shit anymore. I'm sorry. If you wanted to finish watching that, feel free. It's on federalreserve.gov/live-broadcast.htm. I cannot watch that shit anymore. I can't do it. I'm sorry, guys. I can't. It's just absolute horseshit. Okay, 126. Okay, I'm gonna give my thoughts. If you are just joining in, give me 1 second. If you are just joining in, let me give you the timestamps for you to go check stuff out. Okay, you feel free to go check stuff out. This is what we did. We're about to head into the final thoughts and overview right now. This is what we've gone over. Okay. Let me give my thoughts. Now, I'm not an economist, but this is what I think. I have some notes. I'm going to give my thoughts on this, and then I'm going to do a little technical analysis to close out the show. Okay. So the actual value that we got from this conference, or this fucking trip to the senior citizen home, they are more concerned about the long-term effects of tariffs than they were in the last meeting. And I think that is valid, right? There was obviously some concern that if the tariff campaign was just going to be a quick thing, that there could be some fast, shocking reactions to, within the economy, within cost of goods and stuff like that, that could cause momentary increases to the prices of different, of different goods. But now it does seem as if now that this is more of a long-term type of thing, they are concerned about the more long-term effects that this might have on the economy. Now, as a result of that, they are going to be going ahead and just maintaining the current rates. They're not going to be cutting. They're not going to be increasing. And the reason they're doing this is because the truth is that with these campaigns and with the volatility that does come with Trump being in office, there are going to be things that impact the economy that they can't predict. And by keeping rates where they are now, it gives them the opportunity to have more room for, more room if they need it, right? Maybe they cut rates right now, then Trump does something with tariffs, and next thing you know, inflation goes high, and then they have to re-raise rates, and that'd be terrible. They'd rather just keep them how they are, you know what I mean? And so they don't want to move a little bit too quickly until there is a much clearer picture of what is going to happen with Trump's tariff campaign. And I do think that's valid, right? I'm not criticizing that. I do think kind of just letting that play out is the smart play. But my problem that I do get from Jerome Powell is that they will oftentimes not just wait for that. They'll just wait for something to break. Right. They'll just wait for something absolutely terrible to happen before being like, oh shit, guess I got to get out my rocking chair, go head over to my little 1986 Windows computer and go make a move that anyone can do. Right. And that's kind of the issue that I've had with them consistently, is that they always wait too long. And so if it's kind of one of them things like, all right, let's find out what's going to happen with these tariffs and then we'll make a move from there. Cool. But they're saying we'll just wait and see as a whole. And what'll happen is we'll get clarity on the tariffs, and they'll say there's some clarity about how the tariffs are going to impact the economy. Then once we see nothing's happening, they'll say, oh, well, nothing's really happening. So we need to see if something's going to happen. And it's always over and over and over and over the same shit. Right. So to me, I've been I know I've expressed my problems with the Fed. Obviously, my opinion doesn't matter, but I think it's just ridiculous. And I think they always wait for something to break, and that is likely that's going to be a moment where things are going to get ugly. Things aren't going to be fun. I don't think we're just going to go straight up, 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 up. I think there are going to be moments where something has to break in order for him to actually make the move he needs to make. But that will oftentimes entail some sort of ugly move in something. Is it the stock market? Is it crypto? Is it real estate? You don't know. But something probably ugly is going to end up happening, and they always they don't take credit for it. They'll say, well, we kept QE so long because we wanted to play it safe. It's like, no, you kept QE so long, even though you glaringly shouldn't. And money kept getting printed because you and all your bros were using it at the retirement home to buy new golf clubs, to stare at them in the corner of your little retirement home bedroom. That's what you were doing. I hate whenever people say that the Fed is not partisan. Of course they're partisan. And there were a lot of benefits to the governmental parties whenever there was quantitative easing. They were printing money, using it in stupid ass places, and we have to pay for it. We have to pay for it. That is the reality, right? And so whenever they do stuff like this, it's just going to be another example of them simply just waiting too long. So those are my thoughts. In addition to that, I do agree that the best thing to do right now is to wait. I'm not going to pretend. I don't think right now that is the best time to just be cutting rates. I think the economy's not in a terrible place. there are obviously tariffs and stuff going into effect. So just sitting for a month or two and just waiting to see how it all plays out is a good thing. But I think consistently limiting the growth of the economy simply for the sake of waiting and seeing is playing it too conservative. I don't think those are the values that our country was built on. I don't think that the most successful, presidents, the most successful players in the government, they've not been people who aren't willing to kind of to go for it, right? And whenever you look across the world, people are cutting rates for a reason. There's quantitative easing for a reason because things started breaking. And it's like, are we going to really put ourselves in that situation to just wait for shit to get ugly? Like, oh yeah, everyone's losing their jobs. No one can afford to live anymore. And yeah, now we should probably help. Now we should probably help. Like, what the fuck? Like, imagine, listen to this bullshit. Like, imagine if I'm watching somebody standing outside my house with a gun, right? Oh, I can't say that on YouTube, but here we are, whatever. They have a gun. And I'm just watching them. I call the police and I'm like, hey, someone's outside my house. It looks like they're about to break in. They're walking towards, and they're like, you're fine. Like, we don't know for sure if they're going to walk in the house. Maybe they just like the house. I know it's midnight. Maybe they like the bricks. Maybe they're just looking, right? We'll let you know if you need help. Then they break in, and then I'm being tied up hostage. I'm like, hey, they broke in, and I'm being tied up. Can you come? And they're like, nah. Let's see if they actually do something. Let's see if they actually do something. Like, if they do something to you, then we'll show up. Then they cut a leg off, and it's like, well, can you still walk? It's like, can you just fucking come to my house, bro? You know what I mean? Like, that's the situation that we have, and we have it year after year after year. It's nothing new. It's nothing new. It's just annoying. I digress. So, yeah. So that's kind of where we are with that. Give me 1 second. My air conditioning guy's on the way. Sorry. Okay. There we go. Anywho, it's annoying, but it's what we get. Yeah, Nico, it is getting ugly in here. Okay, anyway. So that's kind of where we are. Overall, let me just give my general thoughts here, okay? So the market is still in a place of uncertainty. The data shows that we're in a place of uncertainty. And that is the majority of the reason why the market's not doing a ton right now. It's just going sideways. And I do believe that the general market is going to continue to create macro structure while it is anticipating what's going to happen with the tariffs, what's going to happen with the economy, what's going to happen with widespread liquidity. I don't think we're going to see major players making huge moves in either direction enough to cause the market to really pump or really dump until there is a little bit more clarity on what is happening here in the market. And so I don't fault the Fed for just waiting. I think they're just going to wait too long, and that's why I'm getting mad. But I think the best thing to do in a situation like this as crypto investors is to understand that we are still developing macro structure. We're still trying to get a feel for what the market's going to do. And the best thing that you can do in situations like this is just a dollar cost average on the red days and usually just wait. Maybe take a little profit on the green days. That is something that I'm a big advocate of, but not making any huge moves right now is a good idea. We're still in like the HMZ zone, basically. And so, yeah, so that's where we're at. So, look, what I'm going to do real quick to kind of close the stream off really quickly is I'm going to go run. I've been smashing water. I'm going to go run to the bathroom. Leave some cryptos in the chat that you want us to do some technical analysis on. I'm going to do some TA. We're going to just kind of rapid fire some TA, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Someone said your link to your school doesn't work. Someone please double check the link to the school in the chat right now and make sure it does work. I'm pretty sure it does. But yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. All right. Okay. Please don't spam. I see your messages. If you spam, you're going to get muted. I'm just warning you now. Okay. So look, we're going to get into the final technical analysis portion. Final TA sesh, and we are starting at 136. Okay. All right, let's get into it then. So we're just going to do rapid fire TA. I'm going to tell you if I think it's in a good spot, and if I think it's in a good spot that's worth buying or selling or just waiting. Okay. Bitcoin, I think right now is now a wait moment. I would be looking for a bit more of a macro pullback towards the bottom side of this channel if I was going to do some DCAing, because again, I do think that Bitcoin is going to break to the downside of this channel at some point. There's over a 90% chance that it does happen. That's just normally what happens, or it's about an 88% chance. So over an 80% chance that it does happen. Obviously, it might just run out of here. That's just not what usually happens. So I'm not going to bet on that. I wouldn't be doing any buying right now. I would be doing a little bit of profit taking, and I did do some profit taking up here on Bitcoin. Looking at ETH is still in a spot, another one I really wouldn't be doing much with right now. I don't think it's worth selling, right? I don't think it's worth buying. If I was a long-term investor, say I bought ETH up, in December around $3,200 or something like that, I do think anywhere down here is a decent time to dollar cost average, because ETH is most likely going to run at some point again, right? ETH's probably going to hit 3K again one day. So it's just kind of a matter of time. So I don't think from a macro perspective, ETH's in a terrible spot to be dollar cost averaging in on. I'm just personally not going to. But to each their own, of course. Solana's in a similar situation. I would be willing to do some tiny dollar cost averages on Solana, but I really wouldn't be doing anything big because it is in the third step of our macro breakout strategy. Remember, the macro breakout strategy is simple. The first step is the breakout and the back test, our good old friend Bob T. The second step is the higher high, which Solana did right here. The last step of this breakout is a higher low. And so at any given point, Solana could pull back to like 133 or 125, or it might just continue to consolidate sideways before trying to break upwards. So I do think that it's in a decent time to DCA, but I wouldn't be doing huge buys unless we can see it fall to 134, 125, or a little bit lower, something like that. Okay. Sui's in an exact same situation. I wouldn't be doing gigantic purchases on Sui here because Sui very well might try to come all the way back down to some of these key liquidity zones between anywhere from $3.08 to $2.82. But in general, it is on the third step. It's done the breakout. It's done the back test. This is a successful Bob T right here. We pushed up into the higher high. Now it's looking for the higher low before trying to continue upwards. So to me, I think Bob T being complete, step 2 being complete. I think doing some DCAing on Sui as it does pull back to what could be $2.80, maybe lower towards $2.40 isn't a bad idea. But right now, I would be doing small dollar cost averages, picking them up a lot more gradually as we got lower and lower. Okay. XRP is still in a decent buying opportunity in a macro. In the short term, not the best buying opportunity because obviously we are just around this like 50% threshold still, and we could easily continue lower. But for the most part, I think there will be a day where XRP breaks out of this thing. And so because of that, I think doing any buying in here at any given point should lead to a break even or a little bit of profit eventually. So for XRP, not a terrible spot to be DCAing, but I wouldn't be doing huge DCAs until we get to like the bottom half of this structure here. Okay. ADA's in a similar spot to Solana and ICP, in Sui. I mean, it's cool. I'm just not really all that excited about it. Like, there is this ascending level of support that could pull ADA down to it. So for now, I'm just not really even paying attention to ADA. HBAR is in a pretty decent spot. HBAR is still sitting towards the top side of this descending channel. Since it's kind of stuck here right now, it does feel to me like it might try to give us a push. But the question is whether it brings down and then goes up or just goes up. So to me, I think HBAR is going to maybe try to give us a move sometime soon, but I wouldn't be doing any big buying or anything on HBAR right now. Not when we're sitting directly below a massive point of resistance. It's just extremely risky. Let it break that resistance first and try to give you that move so you can have that structural clarity there, or let it pull back towards this 50% threshold and just do your general dollar cost averaging before it tries to return upwards. And so what we did right here, obviously you can lock in some profits there. Decent timing. And so with HBAR right now, I wouldn't be doing anything too crazy. Okay. What's this? XLM. XLM's okay. It's not really back at the 50% threshold quite yet, so that is when I do generally prefer to do my buying. But to be fair, it is still below the 75% line up here. So it's like XLM is like an okay at best spot to DCA, but I would be looking probably more towards like 23.5 to 17.9 cents. Like anywhere at or below this gray line would be a much more opportune spot to be doing some DCAing. So I'm not doing any huge buys right now, but again, I think it's worth a little bit considering we obviously had this resistance back here. We have all this liquidity. There's a chance that we do see it run. So, XLM's like, okay, not a great buying opportunity, not a terrible one. ICP. ICP is in an interesting spot. ICP is now currently at the very bottom side of this golden channel. This is a bit of a risky situation here for ICP, so I would be being extremely careful right now. If it does lose the bottom side of this golden zone, it does now have a breakout target all the way down to $2.90. That is a very possible move, and that would imply that ICP could still fall another 35 to 40%. So right now, it's like you could be doing some buying on ICP, but I would probably start setting some stop losses, or just keep in mind that it very well might fall, and you just don't invest anything you're scared to lose, because if it doesn't hold the support here and try to push up out this golden zone within the next 2-3 weeks, I definitely think there's a massive risk of it continuing this pull back to the downside. So ICP is not one that I think is worth buying right now in this sort of market, because we're so risk off and it is at a major support level. So it's like doing small buys is okay, but I surely would not be doing anything big right now. I surely wouldn't be doing anything big right now. Jasmy, let's see here. Jasmy's in a bit of a pickle. Jasmy's actually looking decent, especially considering the fact that that RSI did give us a nice reset down here. The only problem that Jasmy's having is that it's running into the bottom of this massive point of support. You see how we had all this support back here? Well, that's going to serve as resistance, and Jasmy's really going to struggle to try to get above it. And so I actually do think it's going to try, but it might be a little bit ugly before then. Like you might see something like this, the little cup and handle or something. So I do expect that Jasmy might try to pull back a little bit more, but overall, I don't think it's a bad time to dollar cost average. It feels like it's going to put up a hell of a fight right here. It's trying to flip that macro point of resistance into some support. It might put up a good fight. So to me, I think Jasmine's not in a terrible spot to be buying, but not a great one. And I think that's what you're going to recognize with the majority of everything that I say today. Everything for the most part's in like an okay dollar cost averaging opportunity in terms of altcoins, just not great. And you can start to see that highlighted. Like if we go out to the RSI heat map, for example, you can kind of see why. Like you look at the 24-hour, most alts are around the neutral threshold, and the neutral threshold is like an okay time to buy. It's not a great. A great time to buy is in the weak zone. A fantastic time to buy is in the oversold zone, and that's where most cryptos are, is in the neutral zone. And that's why most things are just okay right now. Generally, I don't do any big buying in okay moments, and we're in an okay moment right now. So that's kind of how I'm feeling. Looking at Caspa's actually doing a pretty good job. I do think that Caspa is showing some positivity here, and the fact that we were able to flip this previous point of resistance into a support zone exactly as we were hoping is a good sign. Again, the only problem that Caspa's going to have is now it's about to run into some major resistance, because look at all the support that was down here, right? You had all the support, all this. Shoot, 1 second. I gotta move my car to get in the attic. Yeah, so you look at all that support that we had there. Caspa is going to struggle to clear it. And while it's struggling to clear it, we definitely might be in a spot where Caspa does kind of get stalled out here. What I would be looking for from Caspa, if I'm looking for a huge moment of strength, is for its price to be able to clear back above 10.5 cents and maintain above it. If it can get into 10.5 cents and maintain above it, it does open the door for Caspa to actually start trying to push some of these higher highs. So I do think Caspa is actually showing some pretty decent signs of strength right now. It just has a couple battles in front of it still that need to be won by the bulls in order for me to be sure that it's going to give us some type of positive movement. Because what could be happening is a back test, right? Remember, this is all support. And so the fact that we lost it and we're coming back down to it could also easily mean that we're about to capitulate to the downside. So that's why right now I wouldn't be doing anything too big. Let's see if it can reclaim this red zone before making some pretty big moves. Okay. Ondo's one I will check for sure. That had to have been my car. That shit was so loud. So Ondo's looking decent. I do like the fact that it is maintaining the golden zone. I don't like the fact that it is on an ascending level of support. So I do think there is still a risk that Ondo continues back towards, 7.5, 7 cents or something like that. But all in all, the fact that Ondo is at the golden zone and it possibly might fall, say as low as 5 cents, I think that means that we are in a decent spot here. And considering the fact that my average cost for Ondo is still pretty high, like I got in pretty late, I do think that Ondo is a decent dollar cost average here at this macro level of support, and it's actually one of the very few that I would be willing to do a medium-sized dollar cost average on, even if it does continue to fall. So Ondo is looking pretty good to me. I think at some point Ondo is going to try to use one of these support levels to push back up to say like $1.05, $1.25, and considering we're only at 0.85 cents or just 85 cents, I don't think it's a terrible time actually to be scooping up a little Ondo right now. Render Render's in a pretty solid spot. Render, quite clearly, in my opinion, is at the bottom side of a descending channel. You can kind of frame it however you want, but generally speaking, when something like Render is in a green zone, it is when I would be doing some buying. So Render is actually the second one of the day that I would be willing to do some buying on here. It did create this double bottom and then pushed up back above it, so it does seem to be trying to retest that previous point of resistance. Maybe you get the little RS flip here and then a push towards the 50% threshold or something like that, or maybe not, right? Maybe it just capitulates back to the bottom side. But anytime a crypto's in the bottom green zone of a descending channel, I am willing to buy it. So I would be willing to buy a little Render here as well. Looking at Brett, Brett's doing a decent job, but that's obviously not a fantastic job. The biggest thing that you're going to notice is that Brett, as well as the rest of them, is just running back up to that macro level of resistance. It had all the support right here. It's now treating it as resistance. And so what it needs to do is be able to clear 7 cents. If Brett can get back above 7 cents, it's in a good spot, and I'll actually start looking to maybe reapproach it. But for now, while it's below it, it has that major risk of this just being a retest into a continuation downward. So for now with Brett, just be watching for it to be able to break 7 cents. That's your cue. That's your signal that it is going to try to make a run, in my opinion. Link, just for a couple more. Link is a little bit elevated off that bottom side zone, but all in all, I do think Link's actually in a pretty decent spot. I do like the fact that it did hold support here, but it does feel like it might come down a little lower. So I wouldn't be doing any big buys right now. Some tiny purchases if you want. It's an okay moment, not a great moment. Again, like most of them. Another one that I did see a lot of in the chat, and that's going to be probably one of the last ones that we do here, is Quant. Hold on. There we go. Where's a good one? This is good. Looking at this bad boy. I would assume this is the one you guys wanted me to look at. I mean, Quant's okay. Again, it had this previous point of support. It's trying to break back above it, but Quant has a lot of upside progress that needs to be made. I mean, the reality here is that for me to get super excited about Quant, I would need to see Quant break above like $155, just because it's just going to keep making this play, right? It's continually to go up, to go down further, and goes up and goes down further. And so to me, until Quant can really make that move, I'm not super optimistic. But I do like the fact that it is maintaining this macro level of support over the last couple of years, and there is a possibility that it does run. So Quant doesn't look like a terrible buy to me, but obviously not a fantastic buy. It's kind of just a mid purchase, and I would be looking really for 155 to break before I got super excited that Quant was going to make some sort of big move. What is this? This is Trump. I'll go look at TARS AI real quick. I think I see it right here. Yep. So TARS AI is looking decent. I mean, you can kind of see the shoot, what am I trying to say? Like what we've been talking about playing real time, right? You see this massive level of support. Well, guess what? TARS ran up to it, ran into resistance, got rejected. In addition to that, I do believe that looks to me like a golden zone. Yep. So we hit the golden zone for TARS here. We got rejected off of it. We're coming back down. This is normal. This is like a normal move, especially for a microcap. What I'd be looking for from TARS AI right now is for it to possibly, it might come back down as low as 4.5 cents, maybe a little bit lower to 3.5 cents, and try to build the higher low. And that's all that's happening. It had this descending channel. It broke out. It's at a higher high. Now it's trying to set a higher low. And I think that coming back to this golden zone and then trying to use it to continue upwards wouldn't shock me whatsoever. So TARS, as it does continue to push down, I will be doing some purchasing here and a little bit more the lower and lower it gets, expecting us to try to find some sort of bottom and try to push back up to, 10 cents, 15 cents, something like that. So overall, though, I do think TARS is in a decent spot, and this is a pretty normal pullback after such a big pump, because you have to be realistic in the sense that TARS literally pumped 553% over a couple days. So a pullback like this does happen. I didn't exactly expect it. I thought it was going to come a little bit later, which is why I did buy some at around 10 cents, but you live and you learn. What can you do? Okay. All right, guys. Well, that was the rapid fire of the day. It's about an hour and we're about an hour and 50 minutes deep, so I'm going to go ahead and jump out here for a little bit. I do plan on doing some more streams before I leave next week. Before I do head out, guys, do not forget that if you want to start doing some leverage trading today, I'm up to 500x leverage, although I don't recommend that at all. You can check out the link to BTCC down below, which you can get a 10% bonus on all first-time deposits between $500 and $100,000. In addition to that, you are also going to be able to do some leverage trading, some isolated cross trading, all the stuff that you need to do. There's a lot of spots, futures, everything you need. It's all in one place. Go check it out. If you are a crypto investor who wants to see not only just the things that I'm buying, selling, trading, whatever, but live streams, workshops, classes, deep dives, research, and much more, the link to the school is linked down below for you, where we are going to give you the tools that you need to create strategies to turn you into a winning investor. And again, if you don't see growth really quickly, we'll just give you your money back. That simple. Go follow me on Instagram. If you have any questions about signing up for the school, if you have any questions in general, you can follow me at TylerHillYT_. Send me a DM and we will get back to you ASAP. And last but not least, we post a ton of content over on Twitter over here at Tyler Hill YT if you do want a little bit of extra information from me. But overall, of course, I hope you guys did enjoy today's live stream. It's been a great one. I'm happy to be back. We went over a good bit, so I will leave these timestamps in the captions and in the description down below. So, of course, I hope you guys did enjoy it, and I can't wait to see you all next time.